Hi, I'm Jodi Carlton, and I'm a neurodiverse relationship expert. And just this week, I had a client who had suspicions that his wife is autistic. He first started really wondering about this when their son went through the diagnostic process of being diagnosed with autism. And while we were doing all this research, his wife also saw some traits in herself, but never really went on to talk about that much. And my client decided to meet with me because he's not really sure how to bring this up to her. He doesn't want her to feel criticized or judged, and he just didn't know what to do. I also just had a man in the comments section on my YouTube channel ask me the very same thing, essentially the same scenario. I've been wondering if my wife's autistic. We've been married 20 years, and now I'm really starting to see traits. How do I go about bringing this up? So what I told my client this week is to not focus on her being autistic, coming to her even really gently and saying, I think some of these traits, I see them in you, and I'm wondering if you're autistic, because that may automatically put her on the defensive. And there's a few reasons why. Number one, she's just had a child diagnosed with autism, and autism in children looks really different than autism does in adults who have developed a lot more coping skills and social interpersonal types of skills. Even though there may be still differences there, it's not going to look the same. So if her definition now of what autism is what she's seeing in her son, and if there are some similarities but also a lot of differences, she may feel like, wait, no, that's not me. I'm not that, so I'm not autistic. This is actually a really common response, and a few years ago, before I really became more of an expert in all of this, I was dating a man who had a son who was autistic. I also recognized that his other son was autistic but had a whole different set of traits, and I recognized that this man was autistic, but they all had a totally different grouping of autistic traits. So when I went about introducing this to him in a way that I don't recommend now, he shut it down immediately and said, no, I'm not that. I'm not autistic. And he really wasn't similar to his diagnosed son in so many ways. But there were so many other ways that were autistic about him that he didn't see as the way autism is defined. So approaching a partner and saying you're autistic, especially if they already have a definition of what autism is, could really be problematic. Secondly, if there have been some difficulties in the marriage or the relationship over time, if you approach your partner and say, hey, you know what, I think you're autistic, and this may explain a lot of the reasons why we've had these communication issues, even if you approach them gently and without meaning to be blaming, it is absolutely going to be received that way. I think I've figured out you're autistic, and you're the problem. You're the reason why we've had all these issues. Again, that may not be what you mean, but it's how it's going to be received. They're going to feel judged, and then that's going to shut down any openness to receiving what you have to say. That's not what you want. It's not going to be productive. So that also is problematic. Lastly, if you approach a partner with the idea that they're autistic, it's very possible that there's going to be some feelings of fear and shame and doubt and confusion and feeling flawed. I don't believe that autism is a flaw, but our society does in a lot of ways. So it can feel very much like, okay, I'm telling you that something's wrong with you. So what do you do? Here's the solution. What I want you to focus on is your differences from one another. You might even at some point introduce the concept of neurodivergence, neurodiversity, which means our brains are just really different in how they work, how they think and they feel. We all understand the concept of someone being left-brained or right-brained, or someone being really creative or really mathematical. That's how it works. Brains are just really different. So I would approach a partner that you think may be autistic with, hey, you know what? I realize that there's some big differences in the way my brain works and the way your brain works. You might talk about how you both use logic and thought differently, how you both experience feelings and emotions differently, how you both experience sensation differently, sounds, smells, light, food texture, those types of things. Those are all differences. How you are different in terms of how much time you need to yourself to recharge your battery, how you're different in how you like to connect with each other. All those things are not something that's wrong with one of you, but ways in which you are different from one another. I also don't think it's necessary that a partner admit or acknowledge that they're autistic. Some people come to me wanting that, but really, if you can talk about these differences and you can work towards solutions where you are more fulfilled in your relationship, that's the ultimate goal.